right, good evening. I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, October 8th to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Stralchuk,
Here.
Alderman Talaco, Alderman Meyer, Alderman Hancher,
Here.
Alderman Bach,
Here.
Alderman Parrish,
Here.
Alderman Bratt,
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Here.
and Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the meeting minutes from September 10th.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any comments or corrections on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We just have a couple of potentially brief discussion items on the agenda tonight. The first is the land management system update. It looks like Administrator Jones is poised to give us that update.
Thank you, Mayor.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. I'm joined here this evening by Assistant City Administrator Justin Shinneman. He and I are going to take you through a quick walkthrough on the progress that staff has been making relative to procuring a new land management system. But before I get into that, I would draw your attention to the screen and to take a look at the 5 key focus areas within our strategic plan. Tonight's Committee of the Whole session is really intended to bring the council up to date on 2 customer service / information technology initiatives that were contained in the strategic plan that was developed back in 2022 and that staff has been pursuing implementation of relative to funds made available through the American Recovery Plan Act. So we're doing a 2-step here tonight, talking about the land management system, and then City Clerk Carolyn Fox will walk you through the experience that her office has had relative to implementing electronic poll books. Again, these 2 efforts flow directly into the city's strategic plan. So now we'll get into the land management system, and I'm going to turn it over to Assistant City Administrator Shinneman, who's going to give you a little bit of history and background relative to where we've been and where we are now. Justin?
Thank you, Administrator Jones. A lot of our land management system processes have been managed by tried and true systems over the last few decades. One of those being paper and staff know-how in our various departments that are involved in those processes, and one key software tool called Black Bear. Black Bear was acquired back in the early 90s and it's been used for the inspections division to govern a lot of their permitting and inspections database. That software is no longer supported and is end of life. Avero Advisors was engaged in 2022 to help us modernize all of our land management processes, hopefully with one new software tool to be used across the board. That process was put on hold in 2022 due to pending police and fire department mergers taking place at that time. Since then, some modernization has occurred. Paper is still being used, and the Dewey Decimal System is still a friend in a lot of our processes, and iWorks has been implemented. iWorks has replaced Black Bear. Black Bear, given its age, no longer could be supported and was having software issues that were impacting inspections' ability to work. With iWorks now in the mix, we have some good news for our larger land management system process. We now have a software that has a stable interim. It's cloud-based, gives our inspection crew tools in the field like being able to use iPads and no longer have to come back to the office and re-type in hand notes every day, and it has eliminated the risk of inspections not being able to function if Black Bear ceased to work. iWorks itself, with the assistance of Avero Advisors, able to contract them with that $15,000 a year for services, and we can terminate once we transition to a new land management system that governs all processes, not just what iWorks does for inspections. And ultimately, it benefits the city too, because we now have a modern database that can be imported into a larger system and we're currently in the process of working with a databaser to get whatever we can out of Black Bear so we can have some historical reference data to use going forward.
So as Assistant City Administrator Shinneman mentioned, we're looking to migrate to a larger, more robust system through this procurement that we're here to update you on this evening. And when we throw around the term land management system, I think it's important to probably just take a step back and understand what that concept and what that term means. It's a parcel-based software system that digitally will streamline planning and zoning, permitting and inspections, code enforcement, and other development-related processes such as licensing. And when we talk about a parcel-based software system, think about a property, whether it's commercial or residential or institutional here in the city of Mequon, and attaching any and all processes that the city otherwise administers to that parcel within the digital software system. So it's going to be sort of a one-stop shop for a property here in the city on a going forward basis. And just to give you an example, we had a liquor license application before the Finance and Personnel Committee this evening for a new business that's converting an existing space here in Mequon. And so to the extent that there would be any permitting or inspections related to the opening of that new business, that information would attach to that parcel within the land management system. Additionally, to the extent that they have licenses, such as an alcohol license, that would also be attached to that parcel or that data record within the land management system, and that can be used across all of the various departments within the city and accessed under one centralized database. As I mentioned, there's funding through the American Recovery Plan Act, and currently we have a budget of about $525,000 that we're working through. As Justin mentioned, we've spent some of those dollars with Avero as we've gone through the procurement process, and we anticipate the bulk of that money will be utilized for the actual vendor that we select when we bring a contract forward to you later this year. In terms of who's involved in the project, we've got representatives from the Community Development Department, including Director Tollefson and Assistant Director Zader, as well as Inspection Supervisor Greg Golden and our Permit Coordinator Karen Heil, who deals with permits and inspections, scheduling, processing on a daily basis. So we're in good shape from that department's perspective. We also have Cole McCraw from the city's engineering division, Matt Fortini, our IT director, and then Brenda Arnett, our finance director, who oversees the assessing function on behalf of the city. Rounding out the group is Justin and myself, as well as our management intern, Justin Randall. We're bringing additional horsepower to the project team in terms of coordinating efforts across city departments, and Justin oversees IT, and this is really an IT project. The two representatives from Avero, Patrick McVeary and Carrie Tapscott, have been helping to guide us through the vendor selection process, which we'll be talking about here shortly. So this effort really kicked off in earnest back mid-year, and since then, in August, we had stakeholder meetings across the various departments that I just described to review and finalize requirements for a traceability matrix, or a requirement traceability matrix. And that is the document that we're going to be using to go through vendor demonstrations that were recently just scheduled after we established a vendor shortlist of those firms that we would like to see and that we think will provide a good solution or a good product for a city of our size. So we're here tonight just giving you a quick update, and actually after we get through tomorrow night's budget meeting, we're going to be rolling into the first of 4 vendor demonstrations starting Thursday here at City Hall. We've got another one scheduled for Friday morning, and then we have 2 more scheduled early next week, Monday and Wednesday. Thereafter, We'll be spending the better part of October finishing up vendor references with the hopes of making a selection or a recommendation on a preferred partner, and then entering into contract negotiations and finalizing that document in advance of contract award in December. So just wanted to give you a quick cursory update relative to some of the efforts that have been going on here at City Hall, where we work Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and sometimes beyond, and to let you know about what's coming your way relative to the expenditure of ARPA funds that remain on hand, but also a contract that you'll be asked to consider and ultimately approve before the end of this year. With that, happy to open it up to any questions from members of the committee at this time.
Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, and great job to the GIS team, city staff. This is a big undertaking. I think we're all appreciative of your groundbreaking efforts here. Just to confirm, will the ultimate GIS product be open to the public? Will they be able to search? Will there be a public-facing interface?
Well, this project and this software is really going to drive, as I see it, two outcomes. One is efficiency in terms of how we do work here at the city from a workflow perspective, and then the other is convenience for those stakeholders that we work with in the community, be it a homeowner or a resident or a contractor or a developer. So to answer your question, Alderman Parrish, the plan and the intent is to have this system forward-facing to the community, so that if you have a project or if you have a transaction that you need to complete that requires city involvement, we want to open this system up to those individuals and those parties that would otherwise have to transact business with the city. And frankly, this helps to drive our overall goal of creating one day a virtual city hall where you don't have to come here to transact business in person. You don't have to do it between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, but you can do it at your convenience at any point in time of the day, on the weekends, etc. But yes, the intent would be to have this facing forward and supporting electronic digital commerce.
Good overview. So I definitely see that. I guess I just wanted to switch over. SOFD, they have an inspections function, which last time I checked needed kind of some upgrades. Are we going to be able to incorporate those inspections layered into here as well?
The fire chief has been a part of some of the early conversations. They're a little short-staffed at this point in time, so his availability is not always in line with the meetings that we've been having as a project team. But to the extent that there are inspections or a portion of the module or a module within the system rather that allows for fire inspections on a parcel-based basis, for lack of a better term, we would certainly seek to incorporate that longer term once we get some of the core modules up and running.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Good questions. Anyone else? Just like to acknowledge I like the process you're going with documenting requirements for what we wanted to do. That resonates. I almost got a chill up my spine. That requirements traceability matrix. It's engineering 101. So that's what I kind of wanted to see, and I'm glad to hear it's being done in that manner. Document what you want and ensure you get it before you do the project. Anyone else with any feedback for Will and Justin? Well, good job.
Thank you for your time.
We look forward to getting this done, and I'm glad we're spending the federal government's money on it, not ours. We need it, but it's nice to spend their money and not ours. Next up, we have status of the implementation of electronic poll books, otherwise known as Badger books. So if some of you have been here a while have heard this term before, but our clerk is going to give us an overview of where we're at with that. Take it away, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight, as you mentioned, we're talking about electronic poll books and their implementation citywide. So to begin, we're going to take you back just a couple of years to 2018. The Wisconsin Election Commission was tasked with developing the electronic poll book system, which they term Badger books. And in 2018, they were ready to roll it out to the poll sites to test it live. They were looking for anybody that wanted to step up and volunteer. I raised my hand for that, and we were chosen as one of 15 sites across the state to participate. And the Pieper Power Center polling site at the Nature Preserve was chosen to test one of the systems. So in April of 2028, we had Wisconsin Election Commission staff here. We had city staff and poll workers all working together to roll that out and test it here in Mequon. It was a big success, not only here in Mequon, but across the state. So the next step was then for the Wisconsin Election Commission to make that available to all municipalities that wanted to opt into the program. At that point, we were still interested. The city purchased one system to explore the efficiencies and the benefits. What exactly are electronic poll books? Well, they're just like they sound. They're a replacement for the paper poll books that you would see when you would walk in, and the election inspectors would have the big binders and flip through and find your name. So each site has one server and 3 clients, and instead of flipping through the paper binders, we use the scanner to look up the voters. So the voter comes up to a station, the poll worker asks for their photo ID, which is usually their driver's license. They scan the driver's license, and that pulls up the voter's record. So that's the main purpose of electronic poll books, but they are also able to process election day registrations, and we do have the ability to scan in absentee ballots instead of manually inputting those, which is a little bit quicker because each one has a unique barcode on them, so there's efficiencies gained there. So we'll talk a little bit about security. Badger books were created and they're owned by the Wisconsin Election Commission. So they were made for Wisconsin by the Wisconsin Election Commission. WEC provides the software and updates at no cost, and the municipalities purchase the hardware. The information on Badger books on election day is nothing more than a list of names and addresses of registered voters across the state. So there's no personal information that poll workers can access. It's of course password protected and data encrypted. Badger books are not connected to the internet. They're actually not capable of connecting to the internet, and they're not connected to the tabulator. The tabulator is the machine that you put your ballot through, and that's what actually counts votes. So Badger books really has nothing to do with counting votes. It's more checking in the voters. We have redundancy in the process in that we do have a paper record of each voter that walks through the door and votes. All servers and the USBs that we use in the process are stored in a secured locked area of City Hall until ready for use. And the election data that we capture after the polls are closed and we capture everybody that voted, that is done at the polls by the chiefs, and they download that information and return it to City Hall during their end of night processes. They get it back here to City Hall via secure chain of custody. Since the inception of the program in 2019, 305 municipalities have opted in, some from the very smallest towns and villages to the largest cities that we have in Wisconsin. Locally, some of our neighbors that are utilizing Badger books is Cedarburg, Germantown, Bayside. I'm told by the WEC staff that 25 to 30 more municipalities plan to onboard after this general election, and that number grows every year. So looking ahead to next month's election, 35% of all voters in the state will be checked in using this system. So that brings us to the ARPA project that the Common Council approved. Back in 2021, when ARPA funds were dispersed, the city of Mequon received $2.5 million. The Common Council approved allocation of those funds and set aside $90,000 for electronic poll books. So as soon as the approval process was complete, staff purchased equipment enough for all polling sites across Mequon. We began phasing them in. We began with the special election in July of 2023, where 4 sites began using them, districts 1, 2, 3, and 5. Then this year, earlier in April in 2024, 2 more were brought online with districts 6 and 8. And the final district, District 7, began utilizing Badger books at just this past August election. So all sites have had some experience prior to the presidential election next month. So phasing in mainly consisted of training staff and poll workers. Currently, we have 150 election inspectors that help us on election day. Each one of those poll workers that you'll see on election day has had at least 2 hours of training, and that's hands-on training with Badger books. To date, we've provided 31 either group or individual training sessions to be sure that the poll workers are comfortable with the process. Of course, we'll have ongoing training as part of each election. That'll just become something that we add to our pre-election work. And we are starting training for the next election actually this week. We have a couple of training sessions. And just to give you an idea of what we're doing, we're going to be offering different types of training. We'll have an open house for veteran poll workers to just come in and practice on them and just get a refresher, more self-directed. And then we will have registration training and new poll worker introduction and training. So at this point, all of the polling sites have been phased in. Final supplies have been purchased, training has been concluded, and we phased out or closed out the project in August. So how is the money spent? It can be divided into 3 different categories: equipment, supplies, and training. Equipment is the towers, the printers, the keyboards, and that allotted to $74,000. Supplies such as extension cords, surge protectors came to $2,000, and then the training of the poll workers, $1,500. All in all, the project came in under budget, approximately $12,500. And so that money was reallocated for other ARPA identified projects such as election signage and towards a new agenda management vendor that we'll be bringing on board in 2025. So what are the benefits? How does the city benefit? How do voters benefit, and staff? There's really benefits pre-election, election day, and post-election. Pre-election, it eliminates what we consider pre-numbering of absentee ballots. It's a process that would take a long time, and in order to save time on election day and make sure we can get the ballots processed by the time the polls close at 8 o'clock, we would come in on Sunday, staff would come in, I would be here with 3 other staff members, and 25 to 30 poll workers would come in and pre-number absentee ballots. That process is eliminated, it's no longer needed. On election day, we'll have fewer election inspectors checking in more voters. So if you imagine at a busy election like we're going to have next month, we would have 2 sets of poll books split by alphabet, A through L, M through Z, and we'd have 2 poll workers at each set of poll books checking in 2 voters. Now with Badger books, we'll have 4 stations checking in 4 voters at a time. So we can have twice the amount of voters, coming through and spending less time in line, and we get those processed quicker. It's more accurate when choosing a voter. Instead of, again, flipping through the poll books and choosing your voter, we'll be scanning a driver's license. So you can imagine that's going to be much more efficient and accurate. It's quicker at the end of the day for the poll workers at the polling sites because certain steps will be eliminated that will no longer be needed due to the processes of Badger books. So that long election day will be shortened up just a little bit for the poll workers. And perhaps the most benefit will be seen post-election. So if you think back to the last presidential election, approximately 18,000 Mequon residents voted in that election. Each one of those residents has an election record that has to be updated, giving them participation, whether they participated by voting absentee or in person. So staff had to manually record 18,000 votes so that their records would be up to date. Now with Badger Books, it's a basic upload from the night before, and all of that participation will be reflected in the residents' records the very next day. So for me, that strengthens confidence in the election process, and they can see that their votes were counted the very next day. So what are the next steps? We're going to continue to educate voters and poll workers on the security and the benefits. We've had very positive responses from the public and poll workers, so we want to continue that experience. We'll plan ahead for replacement of equipment through the capital account, because these systems really get limited use. Up to 4 times a year is all they're being used. Their lifespan is expected to be 8 to 10 years, maybe more. We'll continue to refine our procedures and train poll workers and hopefully have a very successful presidential election. So I'll take any questions if there are any.
Excellent. Thank you for that thorough overview. Alderman Bach.
Just a quick question. Thank you for raising your hand and testing this out, because that's kind of a risk. But
Right.
you know, you were up front, and it'll pay dividends in the future. How does the absentee ballot work on this new system? You still count the ballot, right? It still gets fed into the machine, but that
Right.
just scans it.
Sure.
to-
Instead of what we would have to do in the past would be bring the ballot up and check it in, cut in line and get that person checked in the poll books. Now we can just have a dedicated server to scan them in, and as they're scanning them in, this person will scan them in, then you pass them down, they'll be opened and then put in the machines to tabulate.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Talaco.
Carolyn, can someone opt out from having their license scanned, or is that mandatory now?
We train the poll workers that they should ask everybody, do you mind if I scan your driver's license? And not everybody has a driver's license. They may have their passport when they show their photo ID. So you can look up individuals manually by typing in their name.
Okay, and then you said it wasn't connected to the internet.
Right.
And then what is like our backup plan should one of the books, or if there's a system failure, do we still have paper available that we would be able to continue to make sure that our residents are able to vote?
Yes, we still have to print poll books. So we do send 2 sets of poll books to every location in that event if we lose power. We have basically an emergency tote that we put together that has voter numbers, it has registration forms, it has everything that they need should we lose power.
And then my last question is that you said they don't connect to the internet. So how does that information get on that tablet, and how do we know that it can't be hacked for a better reason of sort? Like, how do we know that it is truly secure? I've had some constituents come up to me asking quite a bit of questions about this security and safety of a device as such.
Sure. So no, it is not connected to the internet, and basically what it is a list of names and addresses, which is public information anyway. So it is encrypted, as it has a 27-digit password in order to try and hack into the Badger Book software. But even if they did, they would get a list of names and addresses. That is all that's in there. And it doesn't have any relationship to the counting of votes. It's just checking in voters.
Okay, so so then how is it marking off that people have voted so that someone doesn't go back into the line and vote again?
Right, so once somebody is checked in, you're not able to choose them again. And we do also have paper redundancy, so we're keeping track of every voter that comes through. So if there were any discrepancies, if there's a power outage, we would still have a list of every voter that is walked through and their voter number. Mhm.
Any other questions?
I was just going to add to that, Madam Clerk. I believe there's also a security key, a physical key that goes into the machines as well, or is that only the clerk's version?
That's the clerk's version, but the information that is onloaded to Badger Books is a secure USB, and the same one that we use to download the election and the information off of it. So those are both secure.
All right, any other questions from anyone on the committee? Good job, thanks for the update. Good, it was a good overview, probably a more thorough overview than we've ever gotten before, but now with all polling sites going online, it's good for everyone's aware of what's going on, so thank you. Next we have our planning calendar. See, next month we have a discussion on ARPA money update and the Port Washington Road market analysis. So be prepared to dive into those two topics. Alderman Meyer.
At some point, I don't know, January or February, we'll need to have a touch base back with a survey. I'm not sure, December we probably wouldn't have a product ready by December, but maybe January's, we might be able to have something to present to the Common Council and like Committee of the Whole, so that they can at least take a look at that.
Okay, I see Administrator Jones feverishly writing notes here. I know the calendar abruptly ends in December, but it's probably not, it's probably a good thing to start thinking about at least quarter one of 2025. So thank you for that. Any other items for the planning calendar? All right, thank you for that suggestion. That's what this time is for. If there are no other suggestions for topics, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?